The rain always fell hardest when Emily Bennett stayed late at the office. It had become almost poetic, the glass windows of Cross Dynamics glistening with city light and raindrops, the hum of distant traffic echoing below. She didn't mind the quiet. In fact, she cherished it. The stillness after everyone left was the only time she could breathe freely, away from the chatter, the tension, and especially from him, Adrian Cross. Adrian was the kind of man who carried gravity with him. Every glance, every word, every step he took seemed deliberate, powerful, magnetic. The youngest self-made CEO in Manhattan's finance world, he had turned a near-bankrupt company into a billion-dollar empire before he turned 35. But for all his success, there was something unreachable about him, something sharp behind those steel-grey eyes that warned others not to get too close. Emily had started working for him 6 months ago as his executive assistant, a job that paid far more than she ever expected, and demanded even more than she thought possible. But despite the impossible deadlines, the perfectionist standards, and the sleepless nights, she couldn't bring herself to resent him. There was something about Adrian that disarmed her, maybe the rare moments when his expression softened, or the quiet kindness in his voice when he said, "You've done well today, Emily." Tonight, though, he was still in his office, light spilling through the frosted glass of his door. She should have left an hour ago. But part of her didn't want to. When she finally gathered her courage, she knocked gently. "Mr. Cross." "Come in," his voice called, low, calm, and unmistakably confident. He was standing by the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled to his elbows, the skyline reflected in the glass beside him. For a moment, Emily forgot to speak. The rain blurred the city lights into soft ribbons of gold and blue, and the sight of him against that backdrop, composed yet quietly tense, made her chest tighten. "You're still here," he said, turning to her. "I thought everyone was gone. I just finished compiling the quarterly review. I was going to leave it on your desk." He nodded. "You didn't have to stay so late." "It's fine," she said quickly, then realized how nervous she sounded. "I didn't mind." His gaze lingered, not long enough to be inappropriate, but long enough to make her pulse skip. He always had that effect, even when he didn't mean to. "Sit," he said suddenly, gesturing toward the chair across from his desk. "You've been working non-stop since Monday. Take a minute." She hesitated. "I really should. Please." His tone softened. "Just a minute." Reluctantly, she Saturday. He moved behind his desk, studying her with that thoughtful expression that made her both curious and uneasy. "You've done excellent work," he said finally. "You're precise, reliable, and unflinchingly honest. That's rare." Emily smiled faintly. "Thank you. But," he continued, leaning back slightly, "I can't help noticing that you keep too much of yourself hidden. You do everything perfectly, but you never let anyone see who you are." The words hit her like a challenge. "I didn't think that mattered. In most companies, maybe not. But this one is built on people who aren't afraid to take risks." His eyes caught hers. "Tell me, Emily, what do you want?" She blinked. "I'm sorry." "Not professionally," he said. "What do you want for yourself?" Her mind went blank. Nobody had asked her that in years. Not since before she left her small hometown, before she decided she would build a life where no one could ever hurt her again. "I don't know," she admitted softly. "Then find out," he said, his voice gentler now. "Because the most dangerous thing you can do is stop wanting." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the rain against the glass. When she finally stood to leave, his hand brushed against hers as he handed her a file. It was nothing, a brief, accidental touch, but it sent a quiet shock through her, a spark that neither of them could ignore. "Good night, Emily," he said. "Good night, Mr. Cross." But as she stepped into the elevator, her reflection in the mirrored doors betrayed her calm. Her heart was racing, and the ghost of his touch still burned on her skin. The following weeks blurred into a rhythm of long hours, sharp deadlines, and unspoken tension. Every meeting, every passing glance, every quiet moment alone with him became charged with something dangerous and thrilling. One evening, as she delivered reports to his penthouse office, a sleek space high above the city, she noticed how tired he looked. His tie was loosened, his hair slightly tousled. He seemed less like the untouchable CEO and more like a man burdened by too many expectations. "You should go home," he said, without looking up. "So should you," she replied before she could stop herself. He looked up then, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "Are you telling your boss what to do?" "Only suggesting," she said with a small smile. He chuckled quietly, a sound so rare she almost didn't recognize it. "You're brave tonight." "I guess I'm tired of playing it safe," she said, echoing his own words from weeks before. Their eyes met again, and this time, neither looked away. The room seemed smaller somehow, filled with the soft hum of the city outside and the sound of two hearts beating just a little too fast. "I've tried not to let this happen," he said suddenly. "This." He hesitated, then stepped closer. "Whatever this is between us, it's wrong. You work for me. There are rules." "I know," she whispered. "But every time I see you, every time I hear your voice," he trailed off, his jaw tightening, "it gets harder to remember why those rules exist." She could have walked away. She should have. But she didn't. Instead, she whispered, "Maybe some rules are meant to be broken." For a long moment, he just looked at her, searching, conflicted, captivated. Then he turned away, exhaling deeply. "Emily, if we cross that line, everything changes." "Maybe it already has," she said. From that night on, nothing was the same. They didn't speak of it again, but the air between them was alive with everything they couldn't say. A glance across the conference table. A brush of hands as he passed her a document. The way his voice softened when he spoke only to her. Rumors began to swirl in the office. Whispers of favoritism, late nights, secrets. Emily pretended not to notice, but Adrian did. One morning, he called her into his office. "They're talking," he said quietly, "and I can't blame them." "About us?" He nodded. "This company is my life, Emily. I can't afford scandal." She felt the sting of those words but forced herself to nod. "Then I'll resign." His head snapped up. "No. It's the right thing to do." "It's the safe thing to do," he corrected. "But you said you were tired of playing it safe." She looked at him, really looked at him, and realized how much he had changed too. The careful mask he always wore was gone, replaced by something raw and real. "I don't want to lose you," he said simply. Her breath caught. "Then don't." A month later, Cross Dynamics hosted its annual gala at the Grand Orion Hotel, a glittering night of crystal chandeliers, champagne, and elegance. Emily wore a deep emerald gown, her hair swept up, her heart pounding. She hadn't seen Adrian all evening, and part of her hoped she wouldn't. It was easier to pretend there was nothing between them when he wasn't near. But when she turned, he was there, black tuxedo, silver cufflinks, and that same unreadable expression that had undone her from the start. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. "Thank you," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. They stood close enough to feel the tension between them, but not close enough to draw attention. For a brief moment, surrounded by the glittering city elite, it felt like the rest of the world had faded away. Then the company's chairman approached, praising Adrian for his leadership and congratulating him on the firm's next expansion, a project that would send him overseas for 6 months. The news hit Emily like a blow. She hadn't known. After the gala, she found him on the terrace, overlooking the city lights. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of rain. "So it's true," she said softly. "You're leaving." "I didn't want to tell you like that," he admitted. "I thought it would be easier if we just stopped." He met her eyes. "If I stayed, I'd never stop." Tears stung her eyes, but she smiled through them. "You always said the most dangerous thing you can do is stop wanting. So don't stop, Adrian. Not for me." He reached for her hand, holding it tightly, one last moment that said everything words couldn't. "When I come back," he said, "I want to find out where this could lead." "Then come back," she whispered. The months that followed were long and quiet. They spoke rarely, their messages professional but warm. Yet every time her phone lit up with his name, her heart reminded her of that night, of everything they left unsaid. When he finally returned, 6 months later, the first thing he did was walk into her office. She looked up, startled, then smiled. "You're back." "I told you I would be," he said, smiling for the first time in months. The silence stretched between them again, that same delicate, dangerous silence that started everything. "So," she said softly, "about those rules." He closed the door behind him. "Let's write new ones." And under the soft light of a new beginning, they finally did.